Now, he said, "I would live my life as ever to the full and die before the disease mounted its last attack, in my own home, in a chair on the lawn, with a brandy in my hand." We can't be sure about the brandy, but the writer, Sir Terry Pratchett, who campaigned for the right to die after he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, did pass away at home today, with his cat on his bed and his family around him. He died of natural causes at the age of 66. Steve Smith looks back.
Now, this is interesting. This is a telescope, I believe.
Well, I got interested in science fiction, and I started getting interested in astronomy, because you could stay up late. See, this is important. You could stay up all night, and I thought I'd be an astronomer because you don't have to go to bed early. And I was interested in astronomy for many years, and I had a telescope.
Do you believe in star signs and all that, or you just like looking at the stars?
That's astrology. That's known as rubbish. This is astronomy, which is about the real stuff.
It's hard to remember now, but Terry Pratchett was once known simply as an author, enduring live TV to promote his highly successful fantasy novels. No doubt he would have been content to go on that way, anything to avoid an end like his own father's.
He said to me, "If you see me with pipes and tubes sticking out all over me and no good to anyone, tell them to switch me off." I wasn't able to do it for my dad, but I sure as hell hope that someone will do it for me.
But in 2007, at the age of 59, the writer revealed that he'd been diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's disease. He bravely documented its effects.
I do get in a muddle sometimes, especially getting dressed.
I can't find the end. No, lost something somewhere. It's disappeared in the black hole of the noose.
My wife and my PA together wrote a list of things which indicate dementia, and say, from where we sit, that indicates a writer. Half blind to things going on around them, is obsessed, is forgetful. I'm pretty much like that all the time.
Sir Terry became an advocate of assisted suicide, or assisted dying as he preferred to call it, and saw for himself what Dignitas had to offer in Switzerland.
Well, here now is the author, Sir Terry Pratchett, who was...
By the time he gave one of his last interviews to this programme, he was showing signs of struggling, but remained characteristically game.
It's a Cinderella. I said that. I've been saying this for a long time. It hasn't got noticed.
Are you talking about the amount of money that's spent on research?
Exactly, yes.
You'd like to see more money spent, presumably?
Good heavens, yes.
Do you find it surprising, Terry, that people are so scared, given how common it is? I mean, most of us are
I think now they're scared because they might be lucky. They might find some carers that care. But I don't know about you. Every time I read newspapers and look at the screen, some bad care has been found somewhere in Britain. And this happens an awful lot. I used to try and write it all down, and you know, I needed another notebook.
Like the consummate pro he was, Terry Pratchett signed off in style from his Twitter account, imagining himself at last united with his character, Death.
Well, with us now are the screenwriter and novelist Frank Cottrell-Boyce and the author Julia Bell, who teaches creative writing at Birkbeck University here in London. Hi. Thanks for both being with us. Frank Cottrell-Boyce, firstly, what was the magic of Terry Pratchett? How did he sell so many books?
I think he just threw a huge party. For the last 30-odd years, it's just been as if there's this great big party going on somewhere in Terry's brain, and everyone was invited. And like all the best parties, there was tons of fun and tons of music and tons of distraction, but also a corner where some amazing, heartbreaking, life-changing conversation was going on, because he made Discworld into a parallel world where he could deal with all kinds of things, the war in Iraq or the fall of the banks or the craziness in the press. They're all in there. He dealt with them all. But he dealt with them as fun. It was like, to use a phrase of Philip Pullman's, he wrote like a butterfly and stung like a bee.
And what will you particularly remember of his writing? I mean, if I can ask such a question out of so many to choose from, what was your favourite Terry Pratchett book?
Oh, well, I read that first one, The Colour of Money, which I think is the first Discworld novel. They all become mixed up in your mind, and in a way it's the kind of ongoingness of it that's amazing. That's the amazing kind of Balzacian, volcanic achievement. But I love The Colour of Money, and I love Two Flower, and of course the character of Death, who's finally come and got Terry tonight, you know.
Perhaps it's an unfair question to pin down which was your favourite novel, but to those people who weren't fans of his work, to those who've never read a Terry Pratchett book, how would you characterise it?
I think he's really good at getting reluctant readers to read. So you go to someone's house and they don't have any books, but they'll always have 2 or 3 Terry Pratchett novels. And I also think one of the things I really admired about his work was that he made us less afraid of death. He characterised death. He turned him into a character. He made him somebody in a way that was safe. And I think that's quite an achievement as a writer.
To many of those people then, in fact, who weren't fans of his writing, in a way, he became as well known for his campaigning around death. But did that grow out of his writing rather than his own experience of Alzheimer's?
Yes, I think it definitely did. I always think that writers are writing up against death anyway. You're writing as a hedge against it. It's a way of saving time when you know you haven't got very much left. You're right. I always feel for myself that I'm writing as a hedge against it, and I think he always did that. I think he's also really good at puns, which I think is something that's particularly the British really like. I think all his novels are full of that kind of playful linguistic fun, which I think really draws people in.
Frank, in terms of his popularity, there's no question, I think he's the second best-selling author after J.K. Rowling, but beyond that, what was his influence on other writers? Because popularity doesn't always translate into literary greatness and being looked after generations and generations forward.
But he was genuinely great, I think. I think because he was so approachable and so fun, and because you could share him with your children, I think we kind of missed the fact that this was a truly great satirist, a big-hearted, hugely creative satirist who is the equal of Jonathan Swift, Voltaire, Rabelais, Laurence Sterne. Those are the shelves that Terry's work sits on.
And do you think that he was aware of the impact that his writing had?
Oh, well, he couldn't not have been, could he? Because Discworld seemed to kind of grow around him. People drew maps and fans dressed up as those characters. He kind of inhabited the world that he created. That's a wonderful, strange thing about sci-fi and fantasy.
Julia?
Yes, I think one of my favourite quotes from him is that stories of the imagination upset those without one. And it seems to me that for a while there was a certain amount of sort of literary snobbishness about his work, but that was sort of pushed aside by the sheer popularity of what he was doing. The people dressing up as his characters, I always think that that's, in a way, the best compliment that a writer like him could have, is that the people invest in his work so much that they actually want to be the characters in his books.
And what about his influence on other writers and other literature?
I think it's hard because he was such a unique character. I think he was so much his own person that if somebody tried to write like him, they'd be like, well, you're writing like Terry Pratchett, not yourself. So he was a really unique character. He gave a speech at my sister's graduation, and he was amazingly inspiring, and just made everybody in the room feel special just by standing there and giving a speech. He was great.
Thank you both so much for coming in, Frank Cottrell-Boyce and also Julia Bell. I'm afraid we are out of time, and to quote him, so much universe and so little time, perhaps so much to say and so little time. Thank you both.